Okay, so I'm going to run a few columns here. So there's two things, guys, I want you to get out. I want you to get out your resentment sheet. Review of resentments. Okay, not the one where they gave the examples, just the empty one. One of them gave some kind of poor examples, so let's see here. Let's review of sex conduct. You've got all the sheets in here. I just wanted to get them all to you at once. We got the fears. All of these sheets are exactly the same, by the way, but there's just three different manifestations. Okay, so we've got a definition sheet. This definition sheet is critical. This is critical. And if you guys take the review of resentment sheet, and if you fold over the fourth column, we now have the blank page that's on page 65. I'm not giving you anything that's not in the book. Okay? So I'm going to run a few resentments here. And the last 10, 12 years of my drinking, I didn't use, and I had no significant other. So what I'm going to do, with Eric's permission, usually he does this, because the first one is usually always the significant other, or maybe the boss. I'm going to run Eric's column on his wife. And again, this is with his permission. I wish he was here to do it. So again, when we're doing our resentments, the first column one is I am resentful at. Now, it said we list these things, period. So when you're doing this yourself, I want you to do all of column one first. Do it all first. On these sheets, just write down the names. And if you know that you've got, maybe you're going to need a little bit more space for your significant other or your boss, you can leave some blank spaces in column two, right? So I'm going to do Eric's wife. Okay, Eric was angry at his wife. Why was he angry? His wife stepped out on him, cheated on him, right? So, and that's normal, right? Oh my God, right? But this was eating his lunch. I mean, I got to tell you, well, we'll talk about it when I talk about the fifth step, but it was eating his lunch. So, angry at wife cheated. Okay, so that's column one. The cause is column two. These are very simple ones, right? We should be able to do those with our eyes shut. But now let's look at column three, and that's why we need this sheet. So column three, let's look what a resentment is. Resentment means to refeel bitterness, anger, which comes from rightly or wrongly held beliefs of being injured and offended. Okay, so let's look at, we're going to skip down to affects my social instinct. That's the first column. Social instinct, your natural tendencies or feelings from birth having to do with people as a group with interests in common. Self-esteem, what we think of ourselves, high or low. Do you think Eric's wife cheating on him affected his self-esteem? Oh, baby, we're checking that one. Okay. Personal relationships.
Check.
Our relations with other human beings in the world around us involves a third party. Do not use person from column one, only others around us. Do you think Eric's wife stepping out on him affected his personal relationships? Oh my God. He was telling me that he did not want to go out with his friends because this might come up. People might see what was happening to him. He was isolating. He was afraid to get with other people, and this affected all of. And when he did have to interact with other people, he was in a horrible, miserable mood. This affected all of his personal relationships. And you've got to look. This sheet, when you're done, this sheet should all be crinkled up, because when you're working your way across, you've got to reread all of these definitions, man, so you know what's going on. Security instinct, your natural tendencies or feelings of safety, freedom from danger or harm. Do you think that his wife cheating on him, and she did it with numerous people, did that affect his security instinct? Okay, let's look at material. Money, property, clothing, housing, vehicles in order to be secure. Well, you know what, man? We're going to end up divorced. I'm going to lose half of the stuff to her. You bet it's affecting his material security. Emotional security, based on our need for another person or persons. Some tend to dominate, some are overly dependent. You bet, man, that was affecting his emotional security. Right now, because his personal relationships, he couldn't talk to other people, he couldn't talk to his wife. He's getting no emotional support from anybody. Totally affected that. Let's go to the sex instinct. We have two. We have the acceptable sex relations and hidden sex relations. Our sex lives is accepted by society, God's principles, our own principles. Well, this is all going on, right? Of course his sex life is affected. They're not in the bedroom together. Hidden sex relations. Now, Eric wasn't cheating on her. He never did. She's the one that had the hidden sex relations, so I'm not going to check that one. Ambitions, your plans or great desires. Social ambitions, your plans to gain acceptance, power, recognition, prestige, etc. Did that affect that? You bet. Well, I'm certainly not going to take that promotion and move out of state with her. There's no way, right? Affected his social. His security ambitions, your plans to gain material wealth, to dominate or depend on others. Same thing. Of course it affected his security. Well, I don't think I'm going to be with her, so we're not going to sell this house and buy that bigger house and do this and that, right? Affected that. Sexual ambitions, your plans regarding your sex lives, either acceptable or hidden. Well, I was going to be with her for the rest of my life. I love her, I hate her, I don't, Of course it affected that, right? So, that's the three columns, right? I'm gonna stop right there. I'm gonna go back to the book. Trying my new format here. We'll see if it works or not. When we were finished, we considered it carefully. The first thing apparent was that this world and its people were often quite wrong. Okay, next to that, right, we think we are victims. Right? And there are times, obviously we've got some resentments that people have done stuff to us where we did nothing. And perhaps they are justified resentments, but by golly, the justified resentments are going to get us drunk just as easy as the unjustified ones. To conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got. So we were the victim. Our whole lives, it was their gall darn fault, right? The usual outcome was that people continued to wrong us and we stayed sore. Sometimes it was remorse and then we were sore at ourselves. The more we fought and tried to have our own way, the worse matters got. As in war, the victor only seemed to win. Our moments of triumph were short-lived. We're going to highlight the next 5 lines. It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility and unhappiness. To the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile. So I can't tell you guys how many hours in my life I squandered thinking about how other people wronged me and what lousy people they were and how I'm going to get even. I can't tell you how much I squandered. And you know what? They might have done something to me, but I'm the one that's killing myself by reliving it over and over when I could be doing other things and living a good life, right? Keep highlighting down to the bottom of the paragraph. We got that whole darn paragraph highlighted. And we're going to circle the 5 synonyms for resentments. They're going to threaten our lives here. But with the alcoholic whose hope is the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience, this business of resentment is infinitely grave. Circle the word grave. Okay. And again, you can 5 synonyms, right, for resentments. We found that it is fatal. Circle fatal. For when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the Spirit. The insanity of alcohol returns and we drink again. And with us, to drink is to die. Circle die. Circle die. If we were to live... we got the next 6 lines highlighted too, 7. This is important stuff here. If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. The grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. So, brainstorm, Walt Disney had not done his brainstorming thing yet, so in the context of the book, it meant explosive, crazy thinking is what it meant. It didn't mean sitting around and spitballing. So the brainstorm were not for us. They may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for the alcoholic, these things are poison. Circle that word poison. Okay, so, wow, you know what this means? Resentments may be the dubious luxury of normal men. I'm a commissioned salesman. I work with other commissioned salesmen. The vast majority of these salesmen are not alcoholics, right? But I see these guys, right? They come into work and they got scooped on a big deal, and they can't get that deal back. I see them muttering all day, and I know they go home and that son of a bitch, I'm going to get even with them, because regular people have them too. But you know what? That guy doesn't drink and he doesn't die. We drink and we die. So it says it may be the dubious luxury of normal people. It still screws their life over, but they're not going to drink and they're not going to die like us. We turned back to the list, for it held the key to the future. Highlight, we were prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. Highlight that sentence. Okay, and you don't need to write this, but what they mean is, we're looking at, in the past we looked at these resentments like, I'm a victim, these guys are horrible people, how can I get even? But now we're going to look at it in a new angle, and the new angle is, what the devil are these resentments doing to me? They're blocking me off from God, they're blocking me off from my fellows, they're getting me closer to taking a drink, they're killing me. So we're looking at these resentments in an entirely different angle. Somewhere next to that, right, can't let stuff go. I've got a different word instead of stuff. Can't let stuff go, somewhere in there. We began to see that the world and its people really dominated us. Okay, again, let's highlight the next 4 lines. In that state, the wrongdoing of others, fancied or real, had power to actually kill. Circle the word kill. And also circle fancied or real. Because I discovered when I did my 4-step that a lot of my resentments, and as we're going to see when we do fears, a lot of those were fancied. They were made up. They weren't even real. They were all in my head. That's what really blew my mind. How could we escape? We saw that these resentments must be mastered, but how? Okay. We could not wish them away any more than alcohol. This was our course. Okay. Highlight the next 2 lines. We realized that people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick. So next to spiritually sick, I want you to write not wrong, not mean. Right? And then a little bit further off to the left underneath that sentence, right, this is the solution.
Not wrong, not mean.
Not wrong and not mean. Right next to spiritually sick. So we realized that the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick. So right after spiritually sick, they're not wrong and they're not mean. They are sick people to do this, right? And underneath that sentence, right, this is the solution, right? We're going to look at, now that's also looking at these resentments in a different way as well. So there's more than one way. You're right, the resentments are killing me, but we're also looking at them that, you know what, man, these people they're sick. Somewhere in there we can write, where it says, we saw that these resentments must be mastered. Let's write, we are not victims anymore. We are not victims anymore. We alcoholics make awfully good victims, man. It's always their damn fault. So we are not victims anymore. I'm just going to finish reading today. It's only one more page, and then we'll go through some notes and run some columns. Though we did not like their symptoms and the way these disturbed us, they, like ourselves, were sick too. So we're going to see that we've done a lot of things because we're spiritually sick. You know what? Other people are spiritually sick too, even non-alcoholics, by golly. Let's highlight to the end of the paragraph, and you can write 4-step prayers, right? They're going to give us some 4-step prayers. Where it says we ask God, highlight to the end of the paragraph and put a 1 in front of we. That's the first 4-step prayer. We ask God, resentment prayer, same thing. We ask God to help us show the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. Okay, that's the first resentment prayer. When a person offended, we said to ourselves, put a 2 in front of this. And I'm just going to call to the end of the paragraph all the same prayer. This is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? God save me from being angry, thy will be done. Okay? So, and again, that first one where it said we ask God to help us, what we say is we say something like, God, please help me show these people the same tolerance, pity, and patience that I would cheerfully grant a sick friend, right? So we can change it around a little bit. We avoid retaliation or argument. We wouldn't treat sick people that way. If we do, we destroy our chance of being helpful. We cannot be helpful to all people, but at least, okay, put a 3 in front of God, and above God write ask. Okay, that's the third one, I guess. We wrote ask in there. Ask, or God will show us how to take a kindly and tolerant view of each and every one. So the way I say that one is, God, please show me how to take a kindly and tolerant view of each and every one. And I mean, I got to tell you guys, at work, when there's a gal there, her husband isn't working and she's got 3 kids. And you know what? When she does something that's a little bit maybe shady to take a deal, I say, my goodness, you know what? She's probably scared that she's not going to make the mortgage. She might not have enough food, right? God, please show me how to take a kindly and tolerant view of her. Now, that doesn't mean that I let her walk on me or take advantage of me, but it helps me so I don't have to get angry at her. I see why she's doing these things. She's terrified that she can't feed her kids, for heaven's sakes, right? And I never thought of that before. All I saw before was that son of a bitch and girl is stealing my business, right? That's how I looked at it before. Okay, highlight the next 4 lines. Referring to our list again, putting out of our minds the wrongs others had done, we resolutely looked for our own mistakes. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened? Okay, so next to that, write 4th column. 4th column. So the sheet that I gave you guys, when we fold back the 4th column, that's right here. So again, the sheets I'm giving you are right out of the book. Not making up anything here. So what we do, and everybody says, and this is wrong. I think, at least I was taught that it's wrong. They say the 4th column is looking for our part. Here it says, It says, putting out of our minds the wrongs others had done, we resolutely look for our own mistakes. So that means I go up to Eric's wife, who cheated. I have got to put out of my mind anything that she did. I got to pretend that what if she was a wonderful wife to me? I put all of that stuff that she did aside, and I got to look at what I did. Right? And if I say it's my part, when I'm going to go to her to make amends in step 9, that means she's got a part too, and instead of keeping my side of the street, I'm going to be waiting for her to say sorry, right? So no, I pretend that she was a wonderful wife. I put out of my mind everything that she did, right? All this column 2 stuff. And I look for my own mistakes, right? And that's the 4th column, and that's what's going to be a big eye-opener to us. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened, right? Though a situation had not been entirely our fault, we tried to disregard the other person involved entirely, right? So we're going to disregard what his, and I'm going to do that when I run my columns too. So let's highlight to the end of the paragraph. Where were we to blame? The inventory was ours, not the other man's. Next to that, write our side of the street / different angle. Our side of the street / different angle. And we highlighted just to the end of the paragraph, when we saw our faults, we listed them, we placed them before us in black and white. We admitted our wrongs honestly and were willing to set these matters straight. Ooh, they're giving us a little hint to step 9 here, but we're not at step 9 yet, so don't worry. So let's go back. Let's see what I got for notes here. I'm sure I missed something, but that's all right. So we're going to go back. By the way, I found this, and I love this. When we're angry and resentful, it's unjustified rebellion or complaint at the circumstances of our lives, escape from reality or the attempt to force our will upon it, transference to God, to our parents, to society, or other individuals, the blame for our own maladjustments. And when we're resentful or angry, our anger demands that we be right. It demands, and we are not able to look at anything else when we're angry, because anger demands that we're right? It gives us combativeness, nursing of grudges, quarrelsome bickering, contradiction, nagging, rudeness, snubbing, vengeance for wrongs real or imagined, or the plotting thereof, hostility, sullenness, rash judgment, refusal to forgive or to offer or accept reconciliation, boycotting, and we can do the old, what's it called when you don't talk to somebody, right? Boycotting or ostracizing another for selfish reasons. So let's look at our mistakes. Where is that sheet? Here it is. Okay, so we're going to go to the fourth column now. This is the important part. So we unfold our sheet. And again, when we do this, we do all of column 1 first, we do all of column 2, and then we do all of column 3. And when we go across and do column 3, referring to these definitions, we are going to start to see patterns. We're going to. Some of us might say, "Oh my God, I got self-esteem checked on every single one of those. Oh my goodness, I've got my security instinct is checked. I'm afraid that I'm not going to be safe and secure now or in the future." So we're going to start to see patterns in this third column, and that's why we do 1 all the way first, 2 all the way first, and then we do 3. Okay. Now let's go to our sheet.
What if we don't have enough room to write a column?
Column 2, the key to, no, you don't want to write a book. You want to keep it, you want, like Eric's wife must have cheated a dozen times. I just wrote wife cheated. We are not going to write specific situations. We're going to just keep it to a few words, because if we start writing a book, we're going to get madder than hell. So we're going to keep it to a few words. And that's the other reason, some people, they do their... I had one poor gal, she did this, and she got her 4-step done, and she dropped out, and I had woman after woman call her to try to do her 5th step. She didn't do her 5th step, and she held on to all of this stuff, and it was a horrible thing. So we have got to get this out in the 5th step. We got it. So you keep in mind, you're going to be doing your 5th step. But let's go to exact, accurate, methodical, correct, nature, the essential characteristic, wrong, acting, judging, or believing incorrectly, fault, something done wrongly, error, mistake, to understand or perceive wrongly, defect, lack of something necessary for completeness, same as shortcoming, falling short of what is expected or required, same as defect. So let's look at selfish, okay? Selfish, strictly material, property, money, housing, clothing, vehicles, etc. So, Eric put aside everything his wife did, and he said, "Was I selfish?" And he said, "By golly, you know what, man? I bought motorcycles and I bought snowmobiles with money that should have gone to the family. I don't think she liked that." He was selfish. Was he dishonest, right? Now, we can be dishonest by telling a lie, or we can be dishonest by omitting something. What didn't I tell them, how I felt, or what I thought? Was I dishonest with her? This is after the fact, when they went to marriage counseling, and the counselor would say, "Is there anything wrong?" "No, there's nothing wrong." So he was dishonest, right? Was he self-seeking? What I want matters more than what you want. My needs matter more than yours. My feelings or comfort comes first. Well, he thought about it. He put out of his mind what she did, and he said, "You know what? I'm the one that picked out the house we bought. I'm the one that determined where we went out to eat. I'm the one that determined the vacations we took. My God. Yeah, you bet I was self-seeking." Was he frightened? Fear of not being accepted, fear of my wants, needs, or feelings not being met. I mean, this whole situation terrified him, and he kind of went into a shell, and he was absolutely frightened. Was he inconsiderate? Did I fail to consider how they felt, their wants, their needs, their beliefs, how I affected them? Now, I got to tell you, Eric gave me complete permission to say all of this, and again, he usually does it. We're sitting down, and I'm hearing his 5th step, and he's talking about all this stuff. And he said, he goes, "My God, the expectations I put on that poor woman, I'm surprised she didn't leave me a long time ago." All of these things, right? Expectations are unborn resentments. He realized that he failed to consider everything that she might have wanted, and he started to understand why she might have done some of the things she did. He said, "You bet, I was absolutely inconsiderate of her." So putting aside all of this stuff, right, or column 2 anyway, Eric was selfish, he was dishonest, he was self-seeking and frightened, and he was inconsiderate. Now, when I was hearing his 5th step, and we were talking about this, he said, "There ain't no way I'm doing a 9th step with her." So anyway, by the time we got to the 9th step, he ran. He stupid move. He didn't talk to me. He ran out and did it with her because he wanted to be free. When he got to that point, he did something that he said not more than a month earlier he wasn't going to do. And he went out and was bawling for about 45 minutes and made amends to his wife. Right. So this really worked. So now I'm going to do some of the more shallow ones because I'm kind of a shallow person. So let's look at John here. So let's see here. Okay, I'm going to do the boss yelled at me, right? Because and I'm just saying that sometimes he treated me. What's it called? What's the word I'm looking for? Golly, I can't think of it. But sometimes the way he treated me, he patronized me, and sometimes yelled at me, and just sometimes didn't treat me right. So does that affect my self-esteem? What we think of ourselves, high or low? You bet. I mean, he's yelling at me, he's patronizing me, and I'm kind of a weird fellow. That affected me a little bit. And I'm sorry, we're supposed to put negative or plus here. Sometimes negatively, but then of course I would turn it around and I would say, well, that son of a bitch is just jealous because I'm running this goddamn store for him. So it affected me positively too, but it did affect my self-esteem. Did it affect my personal relationships? Our relations with others and the world around us involves a third party. Don't use person from column 1. Did that affect my personal relationships? I'm angry at him. Oh, you bet, man. I'm angry at this guy. I'm at the water cooler talking to his boss, or what a son of a bitch he is, talking to other salesmen. I mean, people, I'm in that kind of mood. Nobody wants to be around me. In fact, I get home at night, the significant other doesn't want to be around me, right? When I'm like that, affects all my personal relationships. Security instinct. Your natural tendencies or feelings of safety, freedom, danger, harm. Material, wanting money, property, clothing. You bet. He could fire me. You bet it affects my security instinct, right? I'm threatened. This guy could fire me. I won't have money for alcohol or drugs. I'll be on the street. Emotional, based on our need for another person or persons. Some people tend to dominate. Some are overly dependent. I mean, we were both A-type personalities, and we would go at each other. But I'm going to say, yeah, it did affect that. Sex instinct, your natural tendencies regarding sex. Acceptable sex relations. This, and again, when I got into it with him, right, and we had a date like that, and I say I got a date that night, absolutely it affected that. No, she didn't want to be around me, man. So it did affect that, maybe not as much as some other things. Hidden sex relations, that might be a mistress, that might be a porn addiction, it might be other things of that nature. I'm going to say no. Ambitions, your plans or great desires. Social ambitions, your plans to gain acceptance, power, recognition. I mean, that's affected because, you know what, man, there's no way, I got to get out of here because with that guy in charge, I'm never going to move forward, right? Affected that. Security ambitions, your plans to gain material wealth. Same deal, man. I better get transferred to another store. I better get away from this guy. Maybe I can get him fired, right? Absolutely affected my security ambitions. Sexual ambitions, maybe, maybe not. Okay, what's the exact nature of my wrongs, my defects, my shortcomings? Selfish, property, money, housing, clothing, vehicles. Well, a little bit, because usually when things like, when I'd get into it with them, I wouldn't be able to go out and sell, and I really got angry because I'd be so worked up that I couldn't go out and talk to customers, right? So I'm going to say, yeah, it affected, and that made me mad. You're ruining my day. In other words, I'm letting, I'm actually ruining my day, but I blamed him. Dishonest, to commit, to do, act out and out lies, dishonest by omission. I was dishonest about him. I would make up stuff. He's not, not doing a good job. I was very vengeful. I mean, there was some dishonesty in there. Self-seeking, what I matter is more than what you want. You allow me to cut corners and stay away from me because I got to make my money, damn it. I realize that I didn't do it to buy the book, but that's okay, get away from me. So absolutely self-seeking. Frightened, fear of not being accepted, my needs, yeah, he can fire me, so absolutely both of those. Was I inconsiderate? Did I fail to consider how they felt, their wants, their needs, their beliefs, how I affected them? You got to understand that usually when these things happen, I had usually done something that perhaps would have made his life not so easy. And I never thought about anything that I might have done to get the ball rolling here, ever. So I was very inconsiderate. I'm going to do my boss again to show you how you do another one. This one was it said fancied or real. So I first sobered up, and for 6 months I worked I think every day 6 months straight except the 4th of July. And I went on a sales streak like you couldn't imagine. I was working nonstop to stay busy, going to a meeting every night, not working the steps. And I was making a lot of commissions, but we were making plan every month. So my boss was getting huge bonus checks. And I was resentful because I said, God damn it! I'm the one these guys are learning from me. I'm selling as much as 5 people. If it wasn't for me, that son of a bitch wouldn't get his bonus. His bonus should be my bonus, right? So I was very angry, sober, that he was getting these bonus checks and I wasn't, right? So self-esteem, what I think of myself, well, both positive and negative, right? Because I thought I deserved it, but I wasn't getting it. Personal relationships. You know, when I'm going on a good tear, again, I'm not getting along with people very well, so it was affecting, and I'm bad-mouthing him, saying how he doesn't deserve that. Security, yeah, it's affecting my material. Where's security? Let's go back. Wanting money, property, clothing, housing, vehicles in order to be secure. It's affecting that. It's affecting my emotional because I'm not getting any kudos from anybody. Sex instinct, maybe, maybe not. Ambitions, social ambitions, your plans to gain acceptance, power, recognition, prestige. You know, again, when I'm out there bad-mouthing him because I'm so angry to his boss, that's absolutely affecting all of my ambitions here, right? So now let's look at. I'm doing this sober. Mind you, sober. I thought I could not control my emotional nature. I was exploding at work. I thought I was going to get fired. But I mean, my numbers were just unbelievably huge. So what's the exact nature of my wrongs, my faults? Well, was I dishonest? To commit to act out and out lies, to omit things. John, how's he doing? How's your boss doing? You know, I won't say how's he doing over there. Well, yeah. You know, I would, you know, kind of not say anything, or well, he didn't come in till late today. You know, I'd say all these things. So I was dishonest. I'm sorry. The first one, selfish, money. Yes, I was very selfish because I wanted his money and my money. I was dishonest because I was omitting things he did well when I was asked about him, and even making up some fabrications, right? So I was dishonest. Self-seeking, what I want matters more than what you want. Yeah, I was very self-seeking. My feelings or comfort comes first. I wanted everybody to recognize the great John Henry. Self-seeking. Frightened. I thought I was going to get fired because I could not control my anger. I couldn't control it, man. Inconsiderate. Did I fail to consider their wants, their needs, their beliefs? Well, number one, this guy was working more hours than me, even though I was working 7 days a week. He was there before me, usually stayed later. He hired people, he trained people, he handled customer complaints. He's the one that the muckety mucks would scream at when we weren't doing well. And I failed to consider all of that, and I thought only of the fact that I was producing and I should get his money. So I was absolutely inconsiderate. Now, when I ran this column, this one went away immediately. I mean, I didn't even talk about it. That is absolutely ridiculous. We're going to find that 95% of these, when we see how stupid they are, they're going to go out of our head automatically. And it was very important for me to see what my part is, or not my part, I'm sorry, to see the exact nature of my wrongs, right? Not considering anything he did, and he might have done some things, but I made a lot of mistakes, wrongs, faults, right? Once I see them and I recognize them, guess what, man? It keeps these resentments from coming back. Because what good is it if you get rid of them if they come back again? So when I see this part here, they tend to go away. IRS, you know, IRS, right? They're taking my money. This one, I'll do this when I run the fears too, because I claim 10 deductions because, God it, they can't take my money. So the IRS was also going to be on my fear list, right? Because I thought they were going to throw me in jail. And the IRS is also on my harms list because I was screwing them, right? My boss is on my fear list, right? Because I was afraid I was going to get fired. He's on my resentment list. I can't stand the guy. And he's also on my harms list because I harmed him. Wife, same thing. Resentment, fear, and harms, right? So we're going to see that many of these people and institutions and ideas, if you will, are going to show up on all three. So now let's go to an idea, right? So here I am. There's an idea out there. You know, I'm at a certain age and I'm not married, I don't have children. So that idea is that because of that, maybe I'm less than a man, right? That's a principle, right? So now this principle, how does that principle affect my self-esteem? Well, negatively. Look at my other friends, they got married, they had kids, right? Not me, so yeah, that affects my self-esteem. Does that affect my personal relationships? You bet. It's always in the back of my head. You know, when I'm out, what are they thinking? What are they thinking about me, man? Security, material, maybe not. You know, emotional, probably. Going over to sex instinct. Acceptable sex relations. Well, I'm not married. I mean, yes, of course, the acceptable sex relations would be that I have a healthy sexual relationship with my wife, right? Well, I don't. When I'm out there drinking, I'm hopping from bed to bed to bed to bed, right? So it's absolutely affecting regular and hidden sex relations. My ambitions for the future, this idea, possibly affecting these. You know, then we come over here and we look, you know, what's the exact nature of my wrongs about this thing? Well, you know what? This isn't necessarily true. That because I'm not married and don't have children doesn't necessarily make me less than a man than somebody else, right? So I'm dishonest with myself. Self-seeking and frightened. Self-seeking, I mean, I really like having my time for myself, right? If I had all of children and everything else, I would have a lot less time. I'm self-seeking, but I'm also frightened. Oh my God, I'm going to die alone. I'm going to die alone. You know, inconsiderate. So we just kind of look. But this one here is, I'm mainly kind of seeing how this is affecting all of these, and I kind of discounted it that this isn't necessarily true, right? You know, another one I got, salespeople, just resentment. I used to wake up in the middle of the night thinking how I'm going to get even with them. They scooped a deal. They took a sales deal from me, right? So, you know, I get into work after a day off, and it's, my God, that was my customer. What, you know, you this and that, and there are ways you can, you know, legally scoop people or take their orders, and that would really get me upset. Now, and that would affect myself, and so I'd be madder than hell at anybody that scooped a deal from me. That would affect my self-esteem negatively, because I said, I am letting other people are seeing that somebody is able to screw me and I can't get even. You bet that affect my self-esteem. Did that affect my personal relationships? I'm sitting out and going out with somebody else, and I'm like, do you know what that person did to me? Of course it's affecting my personal relationships. Affecting my material security, right? What I need money to feel safe, it affects that. My emotional security, I want to be number one on the sales list, it affects that. Acceptable sex relations, if I'm on a date and I got a big resentment rolling around in my head, you're not going to want to be on a date with me. My ambitions for the future quite possibly affected all of these, because I would do things, right? You know, and then we get to my part. So this person scooped me, right? Okay, selfish, it's about the money. Well, you know what, man? Well, when I scooped her, I really needed that money because I was going through withdrawals and I needed the booze. Yeah, I was selfish and I scooped her beforehand, so just doing the same thing that I did. Dishonest, you bet. I would lie about things and Self-seeking, what I want comes first, but again, you always refer to these. Was I frightened? You bet I was frightened that I wasn't going to be top salesman or have enough money. Was I inconsiderate? You bet I was inconsiderate. Number one, I had done the same thing to many other people, right, before I was working these steps, of course. And I was inconsiderate of the fact that this person has 4 kids. They barely made their mortgage last week. They don't have enough food on the table. I mean, my God, if I was in a position like that, I would do the same damn thing, right? My family's, I got to support my family. So I'm inconsiderate too, right? So we run these things and we're going to, I mean, this is how, so we got to work on this. We got to stay diligent. Keep a little pad, and you're praying about this all the time. God, please help me to be thorough. Help me to be fearless. Help me to be undaunted. Help me to be honest. And then when you look at this stuff, but again, so we do this, then we do column 2, then we do all of column 3, right? Or if you do it in portions, so you see the patterns, and then we're going to do column 4 all at the same time because we're going to see patterns here and here that are going to blow our mind. See if I got anything else. Oh, by the way, where we stopped reading, you can write end of resentments after these matters straight, and you can write stop week. What is it? Stop week 8, I think. Yep. Let's see if I got anything else in here. So, again, angry, blocking me off from God. Eventually, when I do this, right? When I do this, I'm going to see that this resentment does block me off from God. And I'm going to discover that I don't resent the people, I resent what they did, right? Anybody who does this, I'm going to resent them, right? So it's not the people. I used to hate the people. Next, when I do column 3, I am going to see that it's not even the people that I resent, but it's how I react based against a threat to one of my basic instincts. I'm reacting to a threat. It doesn't even matter what this crap is. I'm reacting to a threat, right? And then over here, I see where I'm at fault. So column 1, blocking me from God. Column 2, it's not them, but what they've done. Column 3, it's not even what they've done, but it's how I react based on a threat to my instincts. We look at it from a different angle. I used to look what they did to me. Now I look at what the resentment is doing to me, and I look at what my part in it is. And I look at the fact that this resentment is blocking me off from God, and it's getting me closer to taking a darn God drink. So when we're angry or resentful, we're blocked off from God. Our mind wants to feel better. What do? We think about the ease and comfort that comes with taking just a couple of drinks. The next thing you know, we go insane. We convince ourselves it's okay just to take a couple of drinks. We trigger the allergy. We get drunk. We wake up sick and in all kinds of trouble, right? Crazy how this stuff works. And here's the funny thing. If these instincts, I know this part, these instincts are under control, or let's say they're not under control. Let's say my boss does something to me and my basic instincts are out of whack, right? I'm really worried about not having enough money. I'm really worried about what other people think. And he does something to me and I go off the freaking deep end, and I lose it. The very next week, my boss does the same thing to me, but all of these, I got a good relationship with God and all of my instincts are under control. He does the very same thing to me and it doesn't bother me at all. It rolls right off my back. And that even in sobriety, sometimes that happens to me, even working these steps. So it's kind of a crazy thing. Shoot, I'll do it next week. Okay, let's end with the third step prayer, and keep working on this. 20 minutes, a half hour a night. God, I offer myself to Thee, to build with me and to do with me as Thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do Thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of Thy power, Thy love, and Thy way of life. May I do Thy will always. Peace.